This from Daniel Mbuka. It's Daniela Mbuka. Anyway, please ranking my 307 with TU5 JP for steering gets harder when driven for a while with AC on, but soften when engine is cold. Steering uses the hydro pump and there is no leaks. The ATF is at the mass. Then I notice it's my double trafficate. Double signal directional light is on as it flickers. The full light flickers as well, though not obvious, but you could observe it. Okay, let's start with the first one. It say your Peugeot 307 has the TU5 JP4 engine, and it say it gets harder when driven for a while with AC on, and when it's cold. The only thing surprising here is that it uses hydro pump. What do you mean by hydro pump? If I understand you clearly, it means the power steering pump is mechanical, not electrical pump. I just want to hope that's what you mean by hydro. Unless maybe I'm wrong, that hydro also means electric power steering pump. Now let's assume that that you meant your car actually has mechanical power steering pump. Then it means someone has converted the car from electric pump to manual or mechanical pump. I will call it mechanical pump. So in that case, I don't know where your issue is coming from. It could be as a result of the conversion that something is wrong somewhere. So it might be difficult to actually say what's going on. If truly, because as far as I know, I'm telling you from my own knowledge, all 307 produced with TU5 JP4 engine had electric power steering pump from new. They all have what I'm saying is I can't tell you how many of them I've seen. I mean, all 307 with this engine that I've seen from factory. I don't know if I'll be able to tell you how many, whether in the 50s or hundreds or thousands. I can't be able to recall, considering that majority of 307 petrol engines have that particular engine model, at least in Nigeria. Even the ones with what's it called, 2.0 liter engine, they still have the electric power steering pump. At least the EW10J4 engine, EW10A engine, they still have the electric power steering pump in 307. So I don't see why your own will be different from new. But then I know some might say, well, anything is possible. Maybe there were exceptions that 307 that were produced with a mechanical pump. Actually, there was one that somebody sent me a picture that is it was advertised for sale. And when I looked at the picture, what I saw there was mechanical power steering pump, it's an electric power steering pump. 307 with that engine. But the other things there I saw there too that showed that there was a conversion done on that car. I'm talking about engine, a big conversion that was done. Either it was the engine. In fact, I think it wasn't just the power steering pump. Maybe it was a diesel car that was converted to petrol car. So they were trying to make, since maybe electric power steering pump couldn't work with the electrical system, they mounted the mechanical pump. Or maybe there was something wrong. I don't know. It's possible that the electrical system was abused and the power steering pump couldn't work, and they decided to bypass it and put mechanical pump. It could also possible that maybe because the person couldn't afford electric power steering pump, you decide to put mechanical one so that you won't have to be going back and forth. It could be a lot of reasons. The power steering pump I saw on the one in the picture was the mechanical pump from that is common in 206 with 1.4 liter engine. That's the one I saw there. So I think you also find it in through I think the EW10J Force with in 206 also has that power steering pump. I'm trying to remember. I think so, yeah. They use the same pump, if I'm not mistaken. Likewise, EW10J4S. Okay, so back to yours. Let's assume it's electric power steering pump, and it starts to behave that way when engine is hot. Number one, usually what determines the softness of the steering wheel. If it has an assistance, it means the pump is weak. Now, it could be as a result of maybe bad oil or wrong oil in the steering system. Just saying. Well, the steering rack is there, but they hardly the cause of heavy steering wheel. They hardly cause that. Not saying anything is not possible, but they hardly do. At least on modern Peugeot cars, usually the pump. Now, there are cases where the electrical system, if it's an electric power steering pump, that can cause that, like in 307. For example, the fuse that controls that pump is under the BSM. They call it a massive fuse. If you don't know what BSM looks like in 307, just search for it. Peugeot 307 BSM, or you could say Peugeot 307 BSM location. BSM. Or call it fuse box. But the reason why I don't want to call it fuse box because the BSI can also serve as fuse box. So it doesn't necessarily make use fuse box. Search for fuse box. It might show you the BSI, which is under the steering wheel. The BSM is in the engine bay behind the engine ECU as a box there. So it's beside the battery. So there's a fuse is a mini fuse box that is attached under the BSM in 307, and that mini fuse box has only fuses that we call maxi fuse, MAXI, maxi fuse. They are much bigger compared to the smaller fuses you find on the BSM. Very big fuses. They're about somehow like 70 amps, 80, 40, depending. So one of them controls the electric power steering pump. There are cases where the fuse might burn, and some people will bypass it and connect it to something else. Or more. There are about 7 of them, if I'm not mistaken. Those massive fuses. That one small fuse, for you to see that small or the mini fuse box, you have to lift up the BSM. You have to pull out the BSM from that box before you can see the mini fuse box, which is under it. Then you can now check. So sometimes people tend to bypass the supply, the positive power supply to the electric power steering pump in 307, in 407 from that mini fuse box. They will bypass it, maybe connect. Sometimes they will bypass it and run it direct to the battery. Direct, or maybe on top of the BSM, there's a power cable that comes from the positive terminal of the battery that goes to the BSM, on top of the BSM. So they will run the connection direct there. So that as soon as the switch on ignition, the power steering pump stays what's it called? It stays very soft. Even with ignition, it starts running. which is wrong. It's supposed to be when you start the car. If I'm not mistaken, yeah, that should be. Shouldn't be soft when the ignition is on, because that would start draining the battery immediately. So whenever I see one they do that, it means they've done a bypass to power supply to the what's it called? The power steering pump. You also hear it whining when you switch on ignition. You hear the pump whining, which is not supposed to be. So when you bypass it and connect it somewhere else, it's possible that where you connect it to, whatever that function that fuse does, or whatever component is supposed to power, probably could be maybe power it for a few minutes and then later it switches off. And when it switches off, of course, the power steering also goes off. So but I can't say for sure. I can't remember. No, those fuses there, they are actually permanently on. Yeah, I remember they are permanently on. It's not like they go on and off. Are they right? Yeah, because they take current directly from um the power cable from the positive terminal, battery terminal. Anyway, so BSM can also do that as well, but it hardly. I've either the issue, like I said, if there's a bomb, because what I also observe when they do that bypass and connect it to another massive fuse, that will now be increasing the load. You have added load on the other fuse that powers something else. So what we usually have, after a while, to burn that entire wire, burn that fuse, burn even the holder where the fuse is supposed to slot it, will burn it as well. For example, I know one of those fuses there also controls the fan. It powers the fan, the radiator engine cooling fan. That's why sometimes when you go and bypass the fan to make it to spin constantly with ignition or with engine running, you see that after a while, that place where the fuse that powers the fan will burn there. So those are the things to check. What I'm saying is, this is a situation where the electric pump might not be the issue, but the power steering, what's it called? The power supply. In that case, that is the fuse box. You have to check to know that mini fuse box to be sure it's not burnt. But there are also other ways to know. For example, but that one is more technical. Like let's assume even when it's cold, you start the car and refuse to work. What we as technicians do, or what I do is, I'll go under the car. I know where the motor of the power steering pump is. If you hit it, sometimes if you hit it with something, boom, it will start working. There's a way you can hit it, that place, it will start running. The minute as you are driving, you might hit a gallop or something, it goes off again. So there's a partial contact inside that particular motor cover, inside that place on the pump itself. That's happened a few times on few cars that I know, 307. So usually the pump, but also make sure, remember Peugeot say every 2 years change the ATF or the oil in that power steering system. Change it every 2 years. So if you don't change it and the oil deteriorates, of course it was going to affect. It won't be as soft as it's supposed to be. Could be a reason, maybe, or you are using a wrong oil. So it's supposed to every 2 years. I've done videos on that. Go and check the YouTube channel. Check. You see videos I've done how to change ATF in Peugeot 307. You see what to do. Just go to my videos, go to my channel, do a search, you'll find it. I specifically did a 307 with that engine. Change the ATF, the fluid and the steering, how you can do that. So I hope that makes sense. Like I said, I'll focus on the pump. But if it's mechanical pump, I don't know what to say, because like I said, it means there's a conversion. Could be as a result, maybe it wasn't converted. I'm not saying there's not something wrong. Personally, I wouldn't bother doing that. I only do this kind of conversion when I know there is no electric power steering pump for me to replace with, or I know I can do the mechanical conversion perfectly well. Then I'll do it. Then when you go, you can go to your BSI unit and deactivate the electric power steering function. I think the option is there for you to deactivate it, so that it won't keep popping up that, because if you disconnect it, it might start popping up that there is an issue with your steering system. So what else? So I don't know. In that case, you say hydro pump. I'm just considering that it might be mechanical. In that, like I say, if it's not factory, even if the issue is the pump, I wouldn't know from here, because conversion is conversion. You can't tell. It could be as a result of it. Maybe it wasn't properly done. Maybe they didn't run the pipe, because you have to change the pressure line, the low pressure line, the high pressure line, all those things. So what if it wasn't done well? There was a mix up, so I don't know. So I can't tell you if there's a conversion, then it has to be physically diagnosed. Um, Personally, I probably may not even bother. If you bring that kind of car, I wouldn't want to waste that kind of energy. I can only diagnose a conversion I did by myself. If it's somebody else that did the conversion, it can be a big headache, because most times, everybody have their own style of conversion, or trying to fix some, do this kind of thing, which is not plug and play. So how will you know where he did wrong? Some of these things can be hidden. It's as if you have to start to study what the person did. We could take days, hours. No, nobody. Well, other people might, but I don't have that kind of time. That's why I tell people, before you do conversion, make sure it can be done to standards. Whoever that will do that to you, so that every other person can be able to diagnose if there's an issue, rather than the person will do it haphazardly or anyhow. My own conversion, they cost more compared to what other people do. As anybody have done some conversion in their car, I charge them way higher than other technicians charge. Why? Because I do it to standard. If I'm going to convert a car from one engine to another, from one transmission to another, I'll do it as if it's factory, so that it should never be a problem that another person won't be able to diagnose that particular system that I did the conversion of. But other people will just anyhow, you know. So that's the difference. Anyway, so the second thing you said, then I noticed is my double, that's the signal light, directional light, is on as it flickers, the full light flicker. I don't know. So your car may have serious electrical issue. Say your headlights blink when your signal lights also blink, the hazard warning light. Say your hazard, when you put on your hazard light, your headlight blinks as well. I don't know, it could be your COM 2000. It could also be your alternator is weak. Or it could be the fuse, but it could be anything. See, that's one thing with I don't know, 307. People go, it's an electrical issue, so I don't know how to say that. It could be an abuse on the system. That's the truth. So I won't be able to tell you what could be the cause. But I can only think of, because I know if your alternator is not charging very well, that one I can tell you for sure. If your alternator is not charging well, if you put on the headlight and press the brake pedal, the headlight will dim. You see it will just dim, boom. If you remove your leg from the pedal, it brighten again. Or if you put on your signal light, your hazard light, as it's doing that, it will also be blinking. You know, or anything. What the more load you add, anything you put on, that you put on radio, you see your headlight will dim. The one I know, if your alternator is charging well, that will still dim the headlight, is if your high speed fan comes up. It doesn't matter how good your alternator is, your headlight will dim. That it will reduce. You will see the light will drop. Then when the high speed fan goes off again, then it increases again. That high speed fan consumes fuel. For me, if I tell for me, it consumes fuel than even AC compressor coming up. That's how I see that. Because that once it comes up, it actually drags the alternator. That's why when people that go and bypass fan, electric fan, and connect it to spin on high speed, permanent, constantly with ignition on the engine, I want you to know what you are doing to your vehicle, to electrical system, to your in other words, the alternator. The more power the more gadgets you put on your vehicle or you introduce in the car that is not factory, the more as you power them on, the more it's dragging the alternator. As it's dragging the alternator from spinning, the crankshaft is struggling to drive the alternator pulley. In that case, it needs more energy to do that. That more energy requires more fuel. That's how you consume more fuel as you do all those things. People really don't understand. Anyway, so um so your car seems to be more of an abuse issue. I don't know for sure, but I'm just at least I'm giving you idea. It needs physical check to know what's going on. Um, that's the truth. I think someone to tell you, hey, it's not an abuse issue. Maybe there's some wiring, small wiring issue somewhere, or normal wear and tear. Could be, but okay. Hope I make sense. If you like the video, subscribe. No, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and yeah, if you have more questions, just post them. I always respond to them. Yeah. So if you want us to talk, then you have to be prepared for a live video so that that will be discussed. We'll have that discussion, then we'll post it on the YouTube channel for others to watch and gain knowledge from as well. Okay, so I'll see you in the next video.